That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, you know what we have to do? We have to go through, look at some of these buy low running backs, some of these options that I think, honestly, the market value has dipped to a point that we can actually finally attack. There are two running backs in particular on this video that we're going to discuss. I already can hear you in the comment section. Mason, I thought you said that player was horrible. Mason, I thought you said we didn't want that player anywhere. And while, yes, I may have said that before the season started when their value was way up here, if it's going to take a considerable step down, I think that we can go through, we can look at some options that I don't necessarily have on a lot of my own rosters, but I'll give my explanation later on in the video. Of course, before we get into it, you know we have to go away and give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats for people who went and dropped a like on the last video and left a comment at the same time. Of course, for whatever reason, if you have not dropped a like in the video, if you have not gone down there and subscribed as well, make sure you fix your life and do that ASAP. And our first winner are going to go out to Jacob. Says, how do you think Jerry Jeudy will look when he comes back this week? We'll be talking about that in a video later on. That's not for this one. And Noah coming out says, I didn't play Herbert in my flex and lost, but it's all good. It was the worst bye week for me. Only 5-2 as well. Would like a hat, Mason. No, thank you so much. And I kind of probably owe you a hat because we told a lot of people to go through and bench Herbert this week because I hated the matchup against the Buccaneers. We thought Damian Williams was going to be splitting that backfield 50-50 as well. Clearly, we were wrong on both fronts, but nonetheless, let's go talk about some running backs. Oh, one more thing. Go support the show on Patreon. Over there on Patreon, you can find our rest of season rankings. You can find our dynasty rankings. You can get into a league with me. You can get into our group chats. You can get a podcast broken down about your team. We have so much stuff over there on Patreon. Find the link in the description of the video. Find that in the comment section. And yeah, let's go. Let's dive right into it. Let's start it off with our first running back, Zack Moss, coming out of the bye week. In the week before his bye, honestly, Zack Moss had a very disappointing performance with only 5.9 fantasy points. It's a spot where a lot of people are now viewing Zack Moss as someone that should be on your bench weekly. But keep in mind here, Zack Moss previous to this was a running back that had the red zone role in Buffalo. That's still going to be there. We know the Buffalo Bills offense based on what we have seen so far this year. And honestly, based on what we have had pretty much throughout the entire career for Josh Allen, this Buffalo Bills offense will be one of the best offenses in the NFL. And I mean, here with Zack Moss, if he is getting that red zone usage, he essentially has, I want to say, 10 touchdowns in his range of outcomes throughout the course of the entire season. And what's really notable here with Zack Moss is this is a running back that we weren't expecting to come out and get a ton of usage in the receiving game in particular, knowing that Devin Singletary was a more than capable pass catching running back out of this backfield. Well, Zack Moss pretty much is averaging about 2.5 receptions at this point this season, which 100% we need to be taking into account, because if you're looking at the fact that he is averaging close to 30 receiving yards, 2.5 receptions, that's an extra 5.5 points that we weren't necessarily knowing if we could get in this Zack Moss profile when we're mainly just chasing upsides in a very prolific offense. Now, with all that being said, Zack Moss is a very intriguing buy low option this week, but honestly, why it's even a better call, in my opinion, if we are looking at the schedule upcoming, it is laughably easy for Zack Moss. I mean, I don't know if the NFL went, probably a good idea to make sure the Buffalo Bills are leading at AFC, leading the entire NFL with their record. Let's get Buffalo a good spot this year. Let's try to bring back the Buffalo Bills of old, because their next stretch of games, they have the Dolphins, they have the Jags, and they have the Jets. I am not going to be surprised if the spread on each one of these games is 13 plus points for Buffalo in their favor. We know that Buffalo will have one of the highest team totals of really any team over the next 3 weeks, according to Las Vegas. They're going to be playing in contests where they don't need to be throwing the ball in the fourth quarter. Rather, they can look to just run the clock down with Zack Moss, and they're going to be putting up a ton of points against very, very bad defenses. So with Zack Moss, you've seen the role that you wanted coming into the year. You've seen Buffalo be a prolific offense, and over the next 3 weeks, you have literally the best matchups you could ask for. So I think the plan is to buy Zack Moss at a low point coming out of his bye. And then if you're not a long-term believer in Zack Moss, then afterwards, going into week 11, when he's playing the Colts, then he has the Saints, Patriots, Bucks, then we can look to sell going into week 11. So almost write it down in your calendar right now. I mean, you can probably bet that we're going to have a sell high running back video in week 11 where we're talking about moving off of Zack Moss at a profit from where you're investing into him right now. I mean, buy at the low point, ride out that production. When the production looks like it's going to run out, then we sell at a higher price tag. You get the best of both worlds. You get a profit and you get production in your starting lineup. Go get Zack Moss. Now, our next running back was one of our number one running back avoids coming into the season, given the fact that he was going in the first round and we definitely preferred his backfield mate at a much cheaper cost, Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb so far this year is the running back 13 on a points per game basis, despite coming out and crushing with over 500 rushing yards through 5 weeks in particular. So Nick Chubb's giving you over 100 rushing yards a game. But what did we talk about coming into the season? We talked about, while yes, Nick Chubb is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, while yes, Nick Chubb clearly behind one of the league's best offensive lines, can come out here and crush every single week with his rushing yards. He can go and get 100 plus rushing yards a week. The problem projecting in the long term was, I mean, with Kareem Hunt in this offense at the same time, we knew that Kareem Hunt was going to be the running back getting the usage in the receiving game. And in a PPR format, that was going to be taking so much value away from Nick Chubb, where Nick Chubb, you can make the argument that he's a top 3 running back talent. But at the end of the day, we've always said Nick Chubb is the best committee running back in the entire NFL. And he's in a great situation behind that offensive line that just made Dearness Johnson look like a great running back. But I have news for everybody. Nick Chubb is probably going to be coming out in week 8. I mean, the last report that we have had with Nick Chubb is that he is hopeful that he can make a week 8 return. And also, I have news that the running back that we love in Kareem Hunt, he's not going to be back in week 8. I mean, Kareem Hunt, this is a running back that was placed on the IR, so there's no way he's back in week 8. Most likely not going to be back in week 9. I'd imagine that we don't get Kareem Hunt back until week 10 or 11. So with Nick Chubb in particular, I'm going to be ranking him as a top 3 running back over the next few weeks. I think with Kareem Hunt coming back into this offense, maybe by the time we get to week 12, 11, that's when he has his full-time role. But what did we just talk about with a player like Zack Moss in a trade target for him? We're talking about trading for that player and expecting that the elite production is going to be there. Like, something I really want to discuss is the fact that if you trade for Nick Chubb right now, say with Nick Chubb, you get him in and you ride out top 5 running back production at a much better rate than the price you're paying over the next 3 weeks. So you ride that production out. And I can tell you, just based on how fantasy managers react, based on the fact that they're going to see those points scored for Nick Chubb, they're going to convince themselves that that's going to be kind of the case throughout the rest of the season, even though Kareem Hunt will be coming back. More likely than not, you can sell Nick Chubb at a premium at a higher price than you paid. But let's say worst case scenario, let's say your league mates, they know what's going on. They're not going to be going and paying that premium on Nick Chubb for that past production, knowing Kareem Hunt's coming back in. Well, still makes a lot of sense to buy Nick Chubb now, get that elite top tier level production over the next 3 weeks and sell him at the same price. I think that Nick Chubb going to be a clear trade target for us. I mean, my plan's not to have him throughout the entire year. So maybe if your league isn't a very active one in terms of making trades and you don't necessarily think you are going to be able to flip him, then maybe you don't, because Kareem Hunt will come back in. Kareem Hunt will have that role in the receiving game. But I think that he's probably someone that we're going to be looking to go out there and chase for now. Now let's go over to our next running back, who is right now the running back, I hate to say this, 31 on a points per game basis. Now keep in mind, this is very skewed given the fact that in week 1, week 2, this was not a running back with his usual workload as well. I mean, he left that game against the Cowboys at the very beginning back in week 5, scored less than a point. So, I mean, it's such a small sample size and it's very skewed. But anyway, Saquon Barkley. Now, with Saquon Barkley here, yes, this is someone that is most likely going to be missing week 8 as well. So with Barkley, I don't necessarily think that we should be going through and trading for him this week in particular. I am more so putting him on our watch list, because very similar to something that we talked about with Dalvin Cook 2 weeks ago, right before Dalvin Cook came back. I mean, we were going through and trying to get everybody to try to just acquire Dalvin Cook at a discount, knowing that Dalvin profiled to be that 3-down running back that historically we had seen his team be willing to give him every single touch out of the backfield when he was healthy. And we said the same thing about Saquon Barkley coming into this season, that when he was 100% healthy, he would be a running back that had his opportunity rate in the percentage of his team's backfield touches at 90% plus. That's exactly what you had. Going back to whenever we had a fully healthy Saquon Barkley in week 3, you get 16 carries. More importantly, 7 targets out of this backfield. I mean, back in week 4, you get 13 carries. And more importantly, 5 receptions out of this backfield. I mean, if you're chasing that usage in the receiving game for Saquon Barkley, you're going to be very profitable, knowing that if you're looking historically on a yards per target basis, Saquon Barkley is near the very top of the NFL alongside a running back like Alvin Kamara. He also has that touchdown upside that is very clear with his 6 foot, 232 pound frame. So this is someone that in those 2 weeks in particular, you saw him score 21 fantasy points and 30 fantasy points in the other week. Clearly, we saw it off a very small sample size that Barkley is that elite level running back. I don't want to say he is the Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. No, but he is more so in line with what you could get from someone like Alvin Kamara. But right now, that's not the price point you're paying with Saquon Barkley. It's going to be significantly lowered. I mean, you could most likely in a lot of leagues go through and possibly move someone. I hate to say it, but possibly we can go move someone like Leonard Fournette for Saquon Barkley. And I think that would make a lot of sense in a PPR format, knowing that Barkley will be seeing 90+% of his team's backfield touches when he does come back to New York, even if that's going to be in 2 weeks. So maybe don't make that trade for him right now, but please don't forget who Saquon Barkley is. A lot of people were able to trade for Dalvin Cook at a discount when people kind of convinced themselves that Alexander Mattison was going to be a committee running back in Minnesota. They really have no incentive to use Saquon Barkley in a committee at this time. I mean, they currently have not signed Saquon Barkley to that long-term contract. I'm going to be expecting Barkley does come back to his usual workload in 2 weeks. Now, our next running back actually made our buy low running back list every single week over the past 3 or 4. So I know you're getting tired of hearing me say it by now, but I'm bringing him up yet again because it's the perfect spot to put him here. Let's go Darrell Henderson. I mean, with Darrell Henderson, we have said the same statement I don't know how many times now. This is a running back that you're looking at saying, okay, well, he is a 3-down workhorse on one of the most productive offenses in football. I mean, here you have Darrell Henderson with 57 snaps compared to Sony Michel with 8 snaps this past week. This is what you've seen when Darrell Henderson has been healthy. Now, a big thing with Henderson as well is he had the workload. He ran a route on 30 dropbacks for Matthew Stafford. That is massive. There were only a potential 42 dropbacks. He ran a route on 30 dropbacks compared to Cooper Kupp at 41, compared to Robert Woods at 41 as well. Clearly, this is going to be a running back that has that usage in the receiving game. And he's also someone that has that role in the goal line. And in this offense, that is going to be massive. Like if we're pulling up what we have had from the Rams offense so far this season. Keep in mind, I mean, a lot of these weeks you didn't have the massive blow-up spots from Darrell Henderson, given the fact that he was in and out of the lineup with an injury, and you would get some usage from Sony Michel. But back in week 1, 34 points against the Bears, then 27 points against the Colts, 34 points against the Bucks, 20 points against the Cardinals. So yes, they did kind of fall apart that week in particular. Then they get 26 against the Seahawks, 38 against the Giants, 28 against the Lions. This is a very productive, a very efficient offense that is condensed. They're not getting that many players involved. I mean, if you're looking at the snaps this past week, it's laughable. I mean, outside of Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, who took every single snap of the wide receiver position. I mean, Deshaun Jackson was the next best wide receiver with his snaps. And the average offense, when you see the 4th wide receiver, I mean, you're going to be expecting that they saw maybe say 32. I mean, maybe say 36 snaps. No, in the case of Los Angeles, Deshaun Jackson had 4 snaps. Very similar to what you had with Tyler Higbee at tight end. Tyler Higbee had 65 snaps in this offense. He played 100% of the snaps for the Los Angeles Rams. Darrell Henderson clearly playing that same role at running back. This is a productive offense with a very condensed tree, and Darrell Henderson getting all the valuable touches in this offense at the same time. Now with Henderson himself, the production wasn't fantastic this week. I mean, he did only average 3 yards per carry, so I mean, that isn't necessarily great. And at the same time, he was only able to come away with 3 receptions and 19 receiving yards. But we know that the touchdown will be there more weeks than not for Henderson, given the offense he's playing in, and given the fact that he's playing on every single down. Now let's go over to our next running back, very similar to Nick Chubb, someone that I was telling everybody to avoid coming into the season. And of course, we're only trading for him if we get a massive discount on him. But let's go and let's look at David Montgomery. Now, with David Montgomery, this was a running back that got put back on the IR on October 9th. And the report then was this is a running back that's going to miss the next 3 to 5 weeks. And I know everybody and their mom, everybody and their grandma, they have seen Herbert crush over the past 3 weeks now, to be honest. I mean, because even when Damian Williams saw 50% of the snaps in Chicago, Herbert came out and had a very impressive mark of with about 50% of the snaps. He actually had 18 carries and 75 rushing yards. Then over the past 2 weeks, when he's become that bell cow level player, he's had 97 rushing yards, 100 rushing yards. This past week, he had 5 receptions, 33 receiving yards. And if you literally just go to Twitter right now and you just search David Montgomery, you are going to get everybody going, Herbert's made David Montgomery replaceable. I mean, the Bears do not need David Montgomery anymore. Herbert's going to be the lead running back when David Montgomery comes back. Herbert's going to be in a 50-50 split with David Montgomery. And I'm going, oh my God, can we not get ahead of ourselves here? Like, are these the same Bears fans that I've been fighting years now with, saying that David Montgomery isn't an elite talent at the running back position? I mean, it's laughable that I feel like I'm the person who's having to come out here and defend David Montgomery, someone that we've kind of trashed on for 2 years. I mean, if you're looking at the difference between these two players in terms of their prospect profile, David Montgomery was a significantly better prospect. At this point, we don't even need to have to talk about his prospect profile. We should with Herbert, though, just given the fact that with Herbert, I mean, we have a very limited sample in the NFL of what we have seen. And this was someone drafted, I mean, at the end of day 3, historical hit rates tell us that Herbert is someone that is a practice squad level player. Now, I will say, I mean, bravo to Herbert, because this is a running back that is definitely proven a role on an NFL roster. He is going to get that contract and going to get paid over the next 3 to 4 years, where that's kind of what you want. And if you're a running back drafted with the 32nd pick in the 6th round of the NFL draft, what you are hoping for, like if that was me, my dream is to be able to stick on the back half of an NFL roster for 4 to 5 years to make sure I get paid. I mean, you're not expecting these players. I mean, very rarely do you ever see these players actually sticking at the NFL level with a role in their respective offense, especially someone like Herbert, that if you're looking at his profile, there's nothing, and I repeat, nothing that makes him look like David Montgomery. If you're looking at David Montgomery, just going back to what you had in 2020, keep in mind, I mean, I was kind of trashing these stats for David Montgomery given the context of having no other running backs back there. But still, this was a running back back in 2020. You cannot overlook the fact he had 247 rush attempts, 1,000 rushing yards. He had almost 500 receiving yards with 54 receptions at the same time. David Montgomery is a better running back in every way. They have used David Montgomery as a 3-down running back in the past. Now, I'm going to be expecting David Montgomery to be a low-end running back too, because how damn bad this offense is for Chicago. So I'm not expecting Montgomery to come in and be a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. But right now, you don't have to pay anything close to those prices. You can get David Montgomery as a throw-in a 12-team format, the running back depth that you would get with David Montgomery to have him as the running back 3 on your team. I think that would be fantastic. As soon as Montgomery comes back, Herbert is someone that is not seeing more than 20% of the snaps in Chicago. David Montgomery will be taking 70% of those. I can pretty much book it. Now, our next running back here will be someone that made our last buy low video. This will be Javonte Williams. Yes, we're going to continue to talk about Javonte Williams, but what I really want to look at is going to be Melvin Gordon's trends in his usage so far this season. If you're looking at Melvin Gordon, this was someone that was the clear starting running back back at the beginning of the year, where he has trended in the opposite direction pretty much. I mean, you can draw a stark line where through the first 3 weeks with Melvin Gordon, this was a running back that averaged about 15 rush attempts a game. And then at the same time, this was a running back that was getting the usage in the receiving game to go along with it. Now, after the past 3 weeks, over the past month, Melvin Gordon has played just a completely different role here, where you've actually seen Melvin Gordon get that bump down to 9 rushes a game. So, I mean, that's a considerable decrease. You're seeing him also trend in the opposite direction in just his overall rushing production to begin with. I mean, over the past 4 weeks, Melvin Gordon himself has averaged about 9 fantasy points per game compared to in the first 3 weeks, Melvin Gordon was up at about 15 fantasy points per game. Now, in the case of Javonte Williams, of course, you're paying a slight premium given the fact that a lot of people are expecting that he is going to take over as the running back in Denver. A lot of people are expecting that Javonte Williams is going to be a fantastic option down the stretch. And with Javonte, if you're looking at the rushing carries so far this season, it hasn't trended in the right direction. Whereas if you're looking at the usage in the receiving game, you love to see it. They're finally getting Javonte Williams involved. Where if you're looking at the first 3 weeks in particular, you've actually had on average about 2 targets out of the backfield for Javonte. You've had exactly on average 2 receptions, whereas that has pretty much doubled over the past month in terms of the targets that he's getting out of the backfield. It's transitioned to over the past 5 weeks. It's been 4 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 7 targets. Clearly, they're just going through and implementing Javonte Williams slightly more every single week. They have a decent matchup this week against the Washington football team. Then they have the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bengals, the Raiders. I mean, not too worried about the schedule going forward for them. And with Jerry Jeudy coming back in, I'm going to be excited in that I think this offense is going to see more first downs. I'm going to think this offense sees more trips to the red zone, and that's going to lead to more touchdown opportunities for Javonte Williams. So I think that Javonte, a 21-year-old running back, is going to continue to expand his role. I think we're going to get very excited and try to buy in now before it's a little too late. Now, thank you. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. And of course, when you do that, you get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat, and you support this channel more than you would ever believe. Go check out Patreon as well if you want to support this channel, get access to our rest of season rankings, our dynasty rankings, get in a league with me. I mean, get a podcast about your team, get in our group chat. There's so much down there in the description of the video if you want to join Patreon. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much and have a great day.